over 5,000 helicopters out of 10,000 were destroyed in Vietnam.
Wow. So it's dripping fire.
Yeah, it's dripping fire. Yeah.
Inside a helicopter
Yep.
as you're trying to fly away from the enemy
Yeah.
with wounded.
Yeah. Chaos. And then I hear the pilot on my headset says, "We're losing power. We're going down." And I'm feeling damn good because I'm alive. Today, if I got anything sticky on my fingers, a popsicle or anything sticky, I got to quickly wash my hands because it takes me back to Vietnam when I got all this blood on my hands. I ran one 100-mile track race at Brookfield High School.
You realize that most of us think that's insane, right?
100 miles, yeah. The house is now saving one more veteran who's homeless, and his legacy carries on. Just one more, and seeing their smile, seeing their faces, and as they're watching you build the ramp, that has been more heartwarming to me in the last year and a half doing that.
Welcome to another edition of No Holds Barred. I'm Rich Roth, and my guest today, none other than Stone Cold Steve Bozeman, super vet Steve Bozeman. I can imagine, Steve, that you've got a million nicknames.
Yeah, I do.
Anyone in particular stand out? Anyone that you were given back then?
I started the Hash House Harriers in Lynchburg in 1993. I'm one of the few people started it, which is a running group with a drinking problem.
As opposed to the other way around?
Yeah, that's right. So after the Gulf War, some of the two CBs and a Marine came back to Lynchburg, and they called me up and said, "We want to do something like they did in Okinawa," which was they get together and they chase around trying to find different chalks. And anyway, it turns out we started it. And so after 6 runs, you get a nickname by them. They find something that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
So they came up with, my name is True Grit No Blank.
You can say it on this show.
Oh, can I? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
True Grit No Shit.
Yeah.
So my wife, when she got her 6 runs, she's true fit for no shit.
But did you get any back when you were in the? And I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop right there because I want to kind of, and I hate the fact that I need to use a cheat sheet for this, but you've accomplished so much and so much has happened. I don't want to miss anything. But you were a helicopter door gunner and then later a sergeant.
Yeah.
In the Marine Corps.
Yep.
You volunteered for 2 terms, or 2 tours.
2 13-month tours. Yeah.
2 13-month tours in Vietnam. You received the Purple Heart and 18 Air Medals. You head up the Support the Troops rally, and we're going to certainly talk about that. Ran with the Color Guard in the Virginia 10-miler and are training for that again, and we'll talk more about that. You've done double Ironman triathlons, including holding a record there, Military Order of the Purple Heart, and still the vice president of the Lynchburg Area Veterans Council.
Correct. Yep.
So that's just some of the stuff. You're wearing a Purple Heart Homes shirt today.
We just started that chapter last year in Lynchburg, first chapter in Virginia, and because they found out that we were so involved with helping veterans, that one of the board members lives over on the other side of Glasgow, and he came over to our LAVC meetings and started seeing what we do. And then he said, "I hope y'all get this chapter to help do more for veterans," which basically we start out building handicap ramps. And then some home improvements for aging veterans who want to stay in their house, their home. So that's the criteria. You have a VA disability, you're an aging veteran, you're disabled, and you want to stay in your home.
I got to know you a little bit because, again, I'm not from Lynchburg, but I was first introduced to you back in 2001 when you guys started the Monument Terrace thing. And I think that's a fascinating story. I know Mary and Brian go way back then, too. They did a live broadcast, and I know helped you guys put that together and help publicize it. And everything that you've done after serving is, I'm trying to figure out which is more remarkable, what you did while serving or what you've done after serving. And we're going to talk about as much of all of that as we can today. And, I'm really excited to do it because, in doing a little bit of homework and learning more about you and all you've been through and all you've done, it's really an unbelievable story. And I know you've been on with Mary and Brian and gotten all kinds of publicity and attention over the years. But, when I started this show, I'd ask people, who should we talk to? And I heard more and more often, your name kept coming up. And even though you've been, covered in newspaper articles and on the morning line with Mary and Brian countless times, thought an opportunity to kind of do a little bit longer, conversation and try to pull it all together made a lot of sense. So I appreciate, first of all, you being here. And
I'm honored to be here, believe me. Anything I can do to talk about how what veterans have done for this country and what we do now. Still, once we get out, we're in the uniform, we come back to the communities and we get involved and we take leadership roles and help those who can't help themselves.
And Lynchburg's an unbelievable town, city for supporting veterans. And
Absolutely.
I mean, I've noticed that the whole time that I've been here is that's one of the things that's near and dear to this area's heart. And obviously there's a lot of history. We'll talk more about Monument Terrace, but World War II, right? Desmond Doss, being from the area and, lots of folks knowing him. I mean, what we've got in Bedford, honoring D-Day, the D-Day Memorial. I mean, a lot of history here.
And we got Appomattox down the road too.
Of course.
This is a historical area. Yeah.
Well, what I was thinking was I want to talk to you a little bit about your time in the service, because we touched on that just a second ago, 2 13-month tours that you volunteered for in Vietnam. And then, after that, we'll kind of do it chronologically. What led you there and then what you've done and a lot of the amazing things you've done afterwards. But let's start there. I mean, first and foremost, it takes a special person to volunteer to go to war.
Well, I grew up and born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
And 1946, September 12th, I was born. So my dad was World War II Navy, and he wasn't overseas, but he was in the States. But all of our generation, of course, are the baby boomers, they call us. So I'm one of the first ones. So I wasn't really a good student. I wasn't an athletic in high school. In fact, I dropped out of high school when I was in 11th grade because I was living with my grandmother. My dad kind of handed us, my younger brother and me off to her. Of course, she was in her 70s then, because he was in the construction. And my mother was up here in Lynchburg, Virginia. That's why I have a tie to Lynchburg.
Okay.
But they got divorced, and next thing you know, we just got pushed around a little bit. And so I lived with my grandmother in the federal housing project in Montgomery, Alabama. There was a black housing project, and there was a white housing project. And both of them were pretty big, yeah. So when the Marine Corps, or when the war started in Vietnam, warming up, I had dropped out of high school, and I had a little job, not paying much, but I had a car, a girlfriend, and I was happy. I was a little teenage boy. So then the recruiter, once you went to the induction center and you passed your physical, you knew you were going to be inducted into the Army. I didn't want to do that. I always wanted to join the Marine Corps just because of the history of it. And then when the recruiter came to my grandmother's door, knocked on the door, and I was home, I had my car out front, I had the hood up, working on the carburetor or something. And the first thing he asked, "Are you a mechanic?" And I said, "A little bit." And he says, "Well, the Marine Corps needs mechanics on helicopters. Would you like to join?" And I said, well, first of all, I never flown at all, so this was not that I knew I was going to fly. So he gave me his spiel, and I listened to it, and I said, yeah, okay. So I signed the paperwork for delayed entry. This is October '65, and then I would go to Paris Island January the 2nd.
I want to back up just a second because you said you didn't want to join the Army. You wanted to join the Marine Corps because of the history. What specifically about the history of the Marine Corps was so appealing to you?
Well, growing up as a teenager, I started, I guess, reading more about the war in Europe, the war in the Pacific, and of course Iwo Jima, all the campaigns of the Marines had marching to Japan, and that kind of resonated with me. And I didn't want to. I could have been an infantryman, and I kind of liked being an infantryman when I was going through all that training. But I'm glad I got in the aviation part of it for the mechanic duty. But the Marine Corps was just top of the list, and I grew up in a neighborhood that was pretty rough, and a lot of the guys, most of them joined the Marine Corps, and they come back, and of course they got tattoos, and they all got big muscles, and so I said to myself, okay, when that time comes, I'll probably join the Marine Corps versus the Army.
And nothing against the other branches of the service, but
against.
Marines are pretty badass.
Well, I have learned, that they are, and when I got to boot camp, I found out how much they were. And this was, January of '66.
What was that like?
Well, I got there in the cold, so thank God, because in the summer, the sand fleas are out. The sand fleas as big as your hand, and they bite you. So winter wasn't that bad, January, February. And they rush us through the Vietnam. Typically, we have 12 to 13 weeks in boot camp. And they rush us through, no mess hall duty, no other duties, just infantry training and marching and drilling and learning about the M4. Well, we had the M14 rifle,
okay,
which was used in Vietnam at first, and we can disassemble it and blindfold it, put it back together blindfolded, and I just loved what we were doing. I enjoyed it, even though it was tough. Every day you just do what they told you to do. You get up and you have 3 meals a day. You're going to go to sleep sometime. By that time you're so daggum tired, you're going to fall asleep real quick. So the whole boot camp experience was good. And then I went right from there to Camp Geiger, which is near Camp Lejeune, where they do another 4 weeks of infantry training, or two 4 weeks of infantry training. Just typically flamethrowers, grenades, rifle, improving your rifle, shooting. So I just enjoyed it as a young man.
So you said you were intrigued by the infantry, but you were kind of recruited to be a mechanic for helicopters. At what point did that kind of come to a head? And it's, hey, here's the direction you're going. And later you became a gunner.
Well, a door gunner, which is the same thing as an M60 machine gunner on the ground, but you're in the air. And I didn't know I was going to be a door gunner when I got to Vietnam. I just knew I was going to be working on helicopters. And then by the time I got there, I went through some more infantry training in Camp Pendleton for another 2 or 3 weeks out there, jungle warfare. And then when I got to Vietnam, I just knew I was going to be, right away fighting somebody. But when we landed in Da Nang, it was a commercial aircraft, and the first thing that anybody will tell you when they hit the airport, and that door opens up, and the humidity and the smell, and it sticks with you forever, man. This is a foreign country now. You're in enemy territory here. So then I was assigned to a helicopter squadron, and down near Chu Lai. And then next thing you know, we rotated to Okinawa for a month or so just to get reorganized, because they've been in Vietnam for over a year and a half, and the aircraft need to be fixed up. The crew members need to be replenished. So that was all at Okinawa. So then we came back to Vietnam at Marble Mountain in February, February of '67. And then that's when I started flying as a door gunner.
What was that like? I mean, how did that evolve? I mean, you went over there assuming you were going to be a mechanic. You said you knew you were going to fight at some point.
Yeah.
Were you really good with guns? Did you have great aim? I mean, what was the specific reason that they put you there, or just, hey, someone had to do it, and
someone had to do it. So a lot of door gunners that were recruited, even Army, Navy, helicopters too, and Marine Corps. I mean, if you were just happen to be in the area and they need a door gunner, they stick you on the helicopter and just say, you know how to operate an M60 machine gun.
Point and shoot.
Point and shoot, pull the trigger. But most times you knew how to operate a machine gun, because we did a little practice before shooting at a barrel out in the ocean. Okay, and then they fly by and you pull the trigger and try to hit the barrel.
What's it like trying to shoot a machine gun while you're flying around?
While you're flying.
Yeah.
Well, you've seen Full Metal Jacket where that idiot is shooting a water buffalo or shooting down somewhere. But it takes a little practice because you're going 100, 110 miles an hour. And if you got to know how to lead, because every fifth round is a tracer, a red tracer.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
It's a bullet. It's
okay.
a bullet, but it has a red, it lights up red. So as you're shooting the gun, which is, they can shoot 500 to 600 rounds a minute as you're pulling the trigger. So you're seeing where you're going.
So every fifth one you can really see,
Yeah.
because you see like a red streak or something?
Yep,
Okay.
red streak. And then the enemy, typically they had a green tracer. So when they're shooting at you, they had green tracers going off.
You mentioned Full Metal Jacket. I'm going to go down a little rabbit trail here. What's I can imagine you sit there and you watch a lot of these war movies or, combat movies, and you sit there and you're like, that's not realistic at all. What's the most realistic one you've seen?
Full Metal Jacket's pretty good, but of course Lee Ermey, the drill instructor, that's just about perfect. I mean, because he was a drill instructor, and he actually played that role very well. And then the infantry on the ground, the war was based out of not war, but the movie was shot around Fubai, or near Way City, which was one of the 1968 when Tet Offensive happened, which was supposed to have been a peace between the enemy and us. But the enemy came through, and in Way City they killed like 6,000 educators, high professionals, and the Marines had to come in and take back the Way City, and it was a street-to-street fight, and they had a brutal, just about almost 2 or 3 weeks of brutal fighting to get Way City back.
So you're a gunner.
Yeah.
In a helicopter, you've got the red tracers. You see when you hit your target?
Yeah, I was pretty good at it. And
okay. But I mean, you could see it and know that you hit your target.
Yeah.
Assuming that you hadn't killed anyone before you got into the war, do you remember what it was like the first time you knew that you did that?
I never have seen a body that I shot, okay? But I shot in a lot of areas where there were enemy shooting at us just to suppress their fire.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I killed anybody or not. I like to think I didn't kill someone, because...
Who wants to do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, when you're in a war, you got to.
Right, I understood. But, you're a good person. That's the last thing you think you're going to do, and then you're in a situation where you have to, and I would imagine that's got to be hard.
It is. I mean, a lot of Marines I know who did had to kill up close and personal. They still haunted by that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as far as I'm I'm just a happy-go-lucky guy, and I just had to shoot in areas, tree lines, some bushes, and actually, when you see somebody, you shoot at them, but if you don't see them drop, you don't get a confirmed kill. You got to have a witness saying, yeah, he did shoot that person. So some Marines take great pride in bragging how many they killed. Go for it. I couldn't do that.
So you don't know whether or not you actually killed anyone.
No, and I hope I didn't.
Yeah.
But at least I tried to shoot to suppress their fire coming at us, mainly. And of course, they shot the helicopters a lot of times. I mean, we go back and have bullet holes all over the place, and we patch them up with little tin patches, because the skin of the helicopter is about as thick as a paper, made out of magnesium, very lightweight. So you could see where they had. If they didn't hit you personally, you would see where they hit in the area.
Do you remember a time, maybe the first time, where you thought, wow, this is real? I'm in this. I might not come back. Was there one time in particular where that really kind of, that reality hit you?
Well, a lot of the door gunners and crew chiefs who were door gunners too, the pilots typically, they flew the aircraft. They had two pilots. And the door gunners on both sides, one on each side, they had an M60 machine gun, or in some cases, an M50 machine gun, the higher caliber. And the pilots couldn't shoot back. They had to fly because both feet and both hands were busy flying the helicopter. So they relied on the crew members back there to make sure to suppress any enemy fire coming at us, to keep the helicopter flying. Over 5,000 helicopters out of 10,000 were destroyed in Vietnam.
Wow.
Either shot down or mortared or a rocket attack on the ground. And I think, I can't remember the statistics, how many pilots and crew members were killed, but it's about 10 to 15% of the 58,000.
Wow. That's incredible.
So we did our duty in a lot of ways. If you ask any infantryman, grunt, they're going to tell you a lot of times the helicopters got them out of a hot spot. We had gunships, Huey helicopters, and Marine helicopters, and anytime they got in a hot spot, they wanted an air wing. They wanted jets flying over. They wanted someone coming to pick up the wounded and dead, get them out of the zone.
Talking with Marine Sergeant Steve Bozeman here on No Holds Barred, and obviously, going from a kid who, grew up in, Montgomery, right? Montgomery, yeah. Alabama, and next thing you know, you're in Vietnam and you're getting shot at and you're shooting people, and and you had forwarded me a chapter in a book, and just about amazing story at Marble Mountain. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, Marble Mountain. There was a mountain made out of marble just south of the base, maybe 2 miles down. And it's high. In fact, they found out later that inside that Marble Mountain, the enemy had a bunch of caves and tunnels. And we were right there, and they were hidden in there. Even though we suspected they were there, I'm sure but anyway, it was called Marble Mountain. It's a beautiful area, and now it's a tourist attraction for all the Americans and anybody who comes to Vietnam. But anyway, Marble Mountain was a big air base right next to Da Nang, probably about 6 miles away. And the helicopters were based there. And on that particular chapter you're referring to, on May 4th, 1967, I was assigned specifically for medevacs, where you just, from sunup to, 12 hours later, until you're relieved, you're doing medevac evacuations. And meaning you go out to the hot zone, you pick up the wounded and dead if you have to, bring them back to the hospital, drop them off, and stand by for the next call. It's kind of like an ambulance call. You just wait, stand by. And actually, they had a horn at the radio shack, and they would actually go. So you rush out to the helicopter. My job was to rush out and crank up the auxiliary power unit, which is a small engine like a lawnmower, to get the juices flowing, electrical for the helicopter to start. So I did that, and then you make sure you did both guns. You got two M60 machine guns. You got ammo, and you're ready to go. So you fly out to and sometimes you had a corpsman. Sometimes you had a corpsman with you. So we had a corpsman with us this time, and it's a Navy enlisted man who was trained to be like a medic in the Army.
Okay.
So the corpsman and two door gunners and the pilots, we fly out the same area we've been going through all day.
So you had gunners there, but you weren't a gunner. You were a medevac on that day.
No, I was a gunner too.
Gunner too.
You're
Okay.
still a gunner. Even
Okay.
though you've seen the old helicopters had a red cross on it, and supposedly the enemy wasn't supposed to shoot you, but they would anyway.
Right.
So anyway, the Army had the red crosses on their helicopters, but I think they had M60 machine guns on too. But we did, of course. So that particular afternoon, 5 o'clock afternoon, we flew back out there in the same area, and we picked up, and we got shot going. In fact, before we landed, going into the hot zone, they tried to get two F-4 jets to come in, Phantom jets to come in and drop some napalm near the perimeter where the grunts were, but they were too close. The enemy was too close to the perimeter, to the Marines, so they had to just fly in and make a low dive, make a lot of noise. You can imagine a jet flying 50 feet above your head, and they would try to scare them to death. So they did that a few times, and then we had a gunship come in and do the same thing, shooting some at the enemy. So finally, it was our turn to go in. So you spiral down, you land real quick. And there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of chaos. You can't hear nothing. You have a headset on, and they right away they loaded up a stretcher patient, big black Marine. I thought I knew him. He looked very familiar, like I met him in boot camp or somewhere. But he looked. You don't have time really to think. You just okay, there it is, and you get back on your gun. And this other Marine came on. He had a shot in the leg. The other guy got shot in the chest. So anyway, we get airborne right away, and we start heading out, probably 2 football fields, and then all of a sudden I hear a noise, bullets coming in, and I'm looking on my side, and nothing shooting on my side, but it was coming from the door gunner side, the other crew chief, and he's shooting back at the enemy. But then what they did, the machine gun fire they shot was hitting the top of the helicopter, and it has a hydraulic fluid in it, and it caught the hydraulic fluid on fire. So it's dripping down inside the ceiling of the helicopter, right on the patient, right next to me. So I quickly turn away from my gun to move him away from the fire so he won't be
It's dripping fire.
Yeah, it's dripping fire. Yeah.
Inside a helicopter.
Yep.
As you're trying to fly away from the enemy.
Yeah.
With wounded.
Yeah. Chaos. Chaos is happening right there.
Is that like slow motion? Is it like a dream or?
Well, there was a little bit of slow motion to that point. I can still vividly see the fire coming down, and then moving him, and then getting back on my gun, and then the corpsman is trying to treat him to move him, and then the door gunner, the crew chief over there, he's out there. He's still shooting a gun over there. He's shooting somebody. And then I hear the pilot on my headset says, "We're losing power. We're going down." And I don't like hearing that. That's something you don't want to hear. And you're flying in enemy territory. We're going down.
Well, you don't want to hear that ever. I mean,
So instinctively, you're trained to make sure you pick up your machine gun. So I picked it off. You got a little swivel that you on a steel base, and I just picked it up. I grabbed some ammo, a belt, and I turn around to go to the door.
So this is like you took it off the base, right? Because it's mounted
it's
when
mounted.
you're in the helicopter.
Yeah.
So you basically unhooked it.
Unhooked it.
So because you knew you were going down and you needed to have it with you, so you're going to take it out of the helicopter into enemy territory.
Yeah. I got a 38 pistol on my hip, and that's what crew members typically carry. And sometimes you have a M14 or then an M16 rifle with you inside the helicopter. But I didn't have time to think about everything. I just grabbed that one. I knew that when I got on the ground and I had that with me, I'm going to be in good shape.
You're going to be okay.
So then we start descending down into a rice paddy area. It was a dry rice paddy. And it was a hard landing, but we were still hitting, standing up. We were okay. We didn't crash and turn over. But the helicopter's on fire. We hit the rice paddy real quick, real hard. Just the jolt of it threw me out of the helicopter. But I got my M60 hugging like a John Wayne. I ain't letting that thing go. And I got my little, by that time, the belt of ammo was about maybe a foot and a half long. So if I had to shoot my M60, I had to pull the trigger carefully. Otherwise, that belt would be...
Yeah, because you said earlier it's, 50 rounds a minute?
No, 500.
500, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, as this is developing, I rode on the rice paddy. I quickly realized I better get away from this helicopter. It's going to explode or whatever because it's on fire. So I rushed over to the dike where the Vietnamese have dikes around the rice paddy. And I got behind that, got on my hands and knees and belly, and got as low as I could. And I'm looking out on the horizon, expecting to see Vietnamese enemy coming at me. And I didn't. And I just paused for a second. And I looked back 180 degrees back, the helicopter, and in the helicopter I could see the fire going, but I could see a hand. And the hand at the door was waving. He just kind of was doing this. And I said, he's still in there. So again, you're not trained, but instinctively I just rushed over about 100 miles an hour to get to the helicopter, to get him out of the helicopter.
And this was the guy on the stretcher with the chest wound.
Yeah, the black guy. He was he couldn't get out because he was strapped in the stretcher when he came on board. And in fact, that's when I got there. I was reaching to bring the stretcher out, but I couldn't because it was locked in on the corner. And I kept yanking. It took about maybe 2 seconds. And I realized this is not working. So by that time, the crew chief came over to help, and I reached up inside the helicopter and unbuckled the strap on the stretcher, and then he was free. So we both grabbed his feet. He was in. Yeah, his feet was. We both had grabbed his feet, drug him down onto the ground, and then by that time 2 pilots came over, and all 4 of us grabbed 2 arms, 2 legs. And we ran across the rice paddy probably maybe 50 feet to another helicopter landed, which we always got 2 helicopters with us just in case one gets shot down.
Mm-hmm.
So they came in and picked up the 2 wounded. We stayed on the ground, the crew members. So while I'm up and getting in the helicopter, you got Nomex seat, which is a Nomex suit, which is a cloth area that doesn't burn as rapidly as cotton.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm reaching in there, I'm getting burned, and then the ammo is going off too. We got bullets in these boxes, and they're starting to cook off. And all this is just chaos, noise, and your mind is just racing a mile a minute. But once I got him on the ground and got him in the helicopter, and I knew that, okay, the enemy is not rushing over to overrun us, because by that time we had some other Marines come over to help perimeter, to help secure the area. And the helicopter's burning and it didn't explode, it just burned. Yeah. So we stayed on the ground about half an hour, and another helicopter came in, and then we got airlifted back to the Marble Mountain. Then I was told to go to the hospital and get treated for my wounds. and went in there, and I'm feeling damn good because I'm alive.
Yeah.
And both of those Marines are alive, and all the two pilots are alive. So for the day to be start out being the worst thing you can happen, turned out we all survived.
Was this during your first tour or your second?
First tour. So
So you go through that. I mean, I'm assuming, and I shouldn't, but is that kind of the most harrowing experience of your time over there? And then the follow-up question is, you make it through that and then you volunteer to go back?
well, you're still in Vietnam. In fact, I had to next day. Of course, I was patched up. The corpsman in the hospital after the doctor left, he had a little bottle of whiskey, the little shots of whiskey.
Yeah.
And he gave
I'm
it to
familiar.
me. He said, "You might need this later." And I said, "Thank you very much." Like, "Yeah, you have two of them," and he didn't. So when I got back to the area, I'm just grateful to be alive. So of course, the other guys, the other Marines said, "What happened? What happened?" Because by that time, everybody knew one of the helicopters got shot down. We had 24 helicopters in our squadron. So whenever one like that happens, everybody is curious. Anybody get shot, get killed? So I drank my little whiskey that night and I went to sleep. Woke up next morning and went to the line shack and ready to fly again. And they said, "No, you can't fly. You got to take a day off and go get checked out by the doctor." So he kind of went back, and mentally and physically they want to make sure you're okay. Mentally, of course, I lied that I was okay. I didn't. I said, "I'm okay. I can do this again." And I did. I think the very next day after the doctor visit, I went back and flying again. And I was just, the main thing, we were saving Marines. That was what my drive was, to save Marines. And then we saved 2 that day.
So you went back out a couple days later. More experiences. Anything else nearly as I don't know, scary as that?
Oh, yeah.
Or is life threatening?
There's a lot of scary things that went on. We had to extract a recon team one time, and they were surrounded, and jets were dropping napalm, and we were going to go in and get them out, and I knew it was going to be risky. I knew we were going to we might get shot down again, because then now I know that you can get shot down. So every time I'm flying this door gun, I'm saying, is this going to be another day of one of those days? Is he going to hit a vital part of the engine or the transmission? And of course, they hit the different parts of the helicopter, but you could always shear off something and make you crash. Like I said, over 5,000 helicopters didn't come back.
So this all happens during your first tour.
Yeah.
What made you volunteer to go back?
Well, I had some close calls. This is May. And then I got wounded again on September the 3rd of 67 up at DMZ when we got rocket attack and mortar attack real bad. And the next thing you know, I'm counting. I got 2 Purple Hearts. And typically the Marine Corps and the Army too, I think if you get 3, they will send you back to the States just because you lucked up so far. So, but I know some Marines that got 6 or 7 Purple Hearts and stayed in country. So anyway, I almost got my 3rd Purple Heart when I about 12 months into my tour, and we were flying about 1,000 feet, and some enemy on the ground was shot at the helicopter. The bullet came up right behind me. We sitting on 3/4-inch steel plates, and we don't have any side protection. So the bullet came up behind me and came up through the fuel bladder, came up behind me and hit the engine behind me. It has a muffler, and the muffler exploded, and a piece of that shrapnel from the muffler hit my back real hard. And I thought I got hit with a bullet. It hurt so bad. So I'm reaching back there with my hand to touch it, just because you're wearing a flak jacket, but you're leaning over and you got about 6 inches of exposed flesh,
Yep.
and you got your big spine right there, and you're always worried about getting shot in the back where you're going to be paralyzed. But anyway, the bullet came in, hit the muffler and hit me, and then I radioed to the pilot that we just got shot, and the fuel's not leaking out. We got self-sealing bladders of fuel, so it wasn't leaking out. So we flew back to the base. So that night, after I got checked out, all I had was a big bruise, big black bruise. No broken skin. But that night, I worked all night working to take all these hundreds and hundreds of boats out to put a new fuel bladder in, because they get ready the helicopter for flying next day. So we did that till about 3 o'clock in the morning, and went to hit the sack for about 2 hours and got back up and came back out, fly again. So then I was thinking that night, okay, you almost got shot and you almost got paralyzed. Could you get, my mind's racing thinking, I could have got shot in the spine. Not only could have killed you, but you've been paralyzed. And that was for a 19-year-old kid. Being paralyzed is kind of like your worst fear, because I'm picking up these very badly wounded Marines constantly, and dead Marines, and they're all not looking good, and you're getting blood all on your hands. That's why today, if I got anything sticky on my fingers, a popsicle or anything sticky, I got to quickly wash my hands, because it takes me back to Vietnam when I got all this blood on my hands. But anyway, I decided to rotate back to the States after that scary moment. And then I had a cushy job up in north of Chicago on a 2-star general. He had 2 aircraft, a C-54 and a C-117. And I became a crew chief on those 2 aircraft. And I could have stayed in the Naval Air Base. It was Glenview Naval Air Station. I could have stayed there. But I had, after Ted happened in '68, I'm watching on TV, and I didn't know it, but I had they called it back then Vietnam Syndrome, which is the early stages of PTSD. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to get back in the fight, even though you almost got killed the first time. So I kept asking my first sergeant to volunteer to go back to Vietnam, and it took a while, but he finally said, "You dumbass, you dumbass, okay, you want to go back? We want to send you back." Of course, I wanted to get back in helicopters, but by the grace of God, when I got to Da Nang, whichever unit needs you the most based on your military specialty, that's where they're going to send you. And apparently there was a C-117 down at Chu Lai that needed a crew chief. And when I was assigned to go down there, and I wanted to go back in the helicopter so bad, but like I say, God had I had the angels on my shoulders that was protecting me from probably getting killed. Mm. So I got down at Chu Lai, and I just became a crew chief on that aircraft. And other than at night throwing flares out at night, it was pretty relatively easy. Mm. We got shot at, a few bullet holes in the aircraft. So I got 3 more air medals flying in that tour. So by that time, I had a young woman back in the States waiting for me after my first tour. And she had a 6-month-old baby waiting for me when I got there. So I got out of the Marine Corps after 4 years and became a civilian. And then
I want to talk a lot about the stuff that you've done here in Lynchburg to serve veterans and Monument Terrace and all that. But before I do, when you came back from Vietnam, I was way too young for this. But the stories you hear about the way Vietnam vets were treated when they came back, did you experience any of that? The hatred, the vitriol, all that?
Well, I felt it, but luckily when I landed back in the bases both times coming back, I landed on military bases, not civilian bases, not civilian airports. So I wasn't spit on. I didn't have that sting on me. I just, I knew that anti-war protesters, they had that First Amendment right to protest the war. Mm-hmm. And in hindsight, you can look at all the pros and cons of the war. And I've been reading, I got a lot of books on Vietnam, reading about the mistakes made by the administrations, all administrations, Democrat and Republicans, how they screw things up. We could have won that war in a year if we wanted to, but we were trying to let the Vietnamese fight their fight. It's a civil war. And we were trying to help them, and it turns out that we just couldn't help them enough to where the government everybody got tired of the war after about 10 years.
So fortunately, you didn't have to experience a lot of what other people had to experience coming back as far as the anti-war protests. But, I can only imagine what it would be like. And I'm sure you've talked to people and even thought it through of, you're over there. And I understand people may not have agreed with the war itself, but to take it out on the people who were risking their lives, I mean, that must be hard to process.
We were ordered.
Yeah.
The government had a draft. If you didn't volunteer or sign up, you had a draft. So they were sending us to war, and as you know, sometimes the government don't make good decisions. Right. And apparently they didn't on this particular case after 10 years of war. So when I came back, I just was, the war was still going on for 3 more years, and 2 more years of pretty much non-activity, but in 75. So I just and I had a wife, kid, and I got a job, worked, paid bills. I went to school for a year and a half, first of all, college, and then even though I dropped out of high school, I got my GED.
Yeah.
And then went to college and got on with my life.
How did you wind up in Lynchburg?
Like I said, my mother's from here, and I was living in Chicago area where my first wife was, Janice, and she was a student nurse, and she was still going to a 4-year student nurse in school. So she finished up, and we had a little young kid, and then I figured I would just stay there forever. And next thing you know, my mother, both her husbands, my dad died at 54, and her second husband died at 60-some years old. So I just wanted to move out of Chicago. I mean, I couldn't stand the cold, miserable, because I was working for a mobile oil refinery at the time, and I was outdoors a lot and in the wintertime, and I just didn't enjoy the cold weather. And I said, I'm going to move either back to Alabama or back to Virginia. So I chose Virginia, came here, and I found a job with B&W in 1976. And then we had, and Jan had, she had a job with Virginia Baptist. So that's how I got back to Lynchburg. And then next thing I know, the 10 miler came up. And that's how I I was running a little bit in Illinois.
And you weren't a great athlete in high school?
No, I was not an athlete, period. I couldn't shoot a basketball hoop. I couldn't throw a baseball. No, I was just nothing. So running was something I could do, because in boot camp, you ran. Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, we all ran. And the running, I hated it then, but here I am, when I got out, I kind of fell in love with it because if you're a runner, most runners would tell you that the endorphins, the melatonins, all that chemical of your body generates when you're running.
The runner's high?
The runner's high. And it helped me deal with my, like I said, I didn't know I had PTSD then, but I did. And it helped me deal with that. I felt more calm, peace, and just not as angry.
So you start running to help deal with all the stuff that's going on in your head, the PTSD and all that, and that helped. And then it just took off from there. Huh?
Yep, sure did. Once the 10 miler took off, then I ran that one and had a horrible experience because I went out too fast. That back in those years, they had 4,000 runners up front. And then 2 years later, I got involved with marathons. I ran in 78, 3 of them, and then I got hooked on that. And then in 79, I got hooked on triathlons. And next thing I know, I started doing the ultra triathlons and ultra running because I had endurance. I wasn't fast, but I had endurance. And I just kept doing that. And then it kind of helped me deal with life. I met so many great people, other runners, other ultra runners and triathletes from all over the world. And I just felt like, hey, this is, I wasn't a great athlete, but I enjoyed it.
What's the longest race you've ever run?
The double Ironman. Well, I ran 5 100-mile races up in the mountains. I ran one 100-mile track race at Brookfield High School.
You realize that most of us think that's insane, right?
100 miles, yeah. But a lot of people were doing it back then. I said, hell, I can do that. So I started doing it, and then I ran, first 100-miler was on Brookfield High School track, raising money for the Toys for Tots, and raised $1,500 back in 1982.
So a mile is 4 times around the track.
That's right, man.
So you ran around the track 400 times.
In November. It was cold.
Wow. When did it start for you, or when did it occur to you that, because you talked about it before, right? There were angels on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Because there was something more that you needed to do. And, and you mentioned running in the 10 miler, and the color guard and carrying the flag and all the different stuff you've done for, to support veterans. Where did that start?
I wasn't really a Christian man in Vietnam, even though my grandmother took us to the Salvation Army Church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. So my brother and I were inducted very well by Christianity. But I really wasn't a Christian back then. But later on, I was baptized as a young boy in Alabama, but I just wasn't a believer until I met my second wife, Debbie, and we started going to church, and I just knew that I doing the right thing, the 10 Commandments. I knew that was like Desmond Doss, the 10 Commandments. You had to do what was right. So I knew I was doing everything right, but I just wasn't doing things that I should have been doing. So I just became more involved with Veterans Affairs, doing a lot of things to help other veterans who were less fortunate or handicapped. They couldn't do what I could do.
Was there a certain moment, like the light goes on and you're like, this is what I need to do now?
1986, when Lynchburg dedicated Monument Terrace to World War II, Korea, and Vietnam Memorial. I went to the dedication, and at that time I was working at B&W, and I had a good job. I was just I was very athletic, doing a lot of things, training, but then I wasn't that much involved with veterans. So I joined the Vietnam Vets of America in 1986 after that. And I thought that was great that Lynchburg would raise the money to dedicate those 3 memorials. There's 286 citizens from Lynchburg that have died in World War I, II, Korea, and Vietnam.
Wow.
286. I know Bedford has 19 or so, but Lynchburg has their fair amount. Lynchburg, I think World War II they had like 180 something killed.
So that was kind of the moment where you said, I'm going to get more involved.
Yeah.
I'm going to do more to help veterans. So what did you start with?
Well, let's see, 1986 and then 87, 80. We just started doing a lot of things veteran-wise. The Marine Corps League, I helped start that in 91, and then the Military of the Purple Heart chapter in 93, and just more veteran stuff. I was involved with the American Legion and the DAV, Disabled American Veterans. And then really about 2000, when I was able to bring the moving wall here to where the gym where the parking lot of the new police headquarters is That's where we had this huge wall, 7/8 of the size in D.C. And I was able to bring it here and have it for Memorial Day of 2000. And we had Jerry Falwell on Sunday. We had Governor, who was governor? Oh, Rob was governor then. He came on Monday, Memorial Day. And we had a big ceremony. Over 20-something thousand people came out there. And that was like, okay, God, is this what you had me hang around with for? But it wasn't. It was just one of the first things. So next thing you know, I got more involved with the Lynchburg Area Veterans Council, just helping veterans get their appointments to Salem VA, and handicap ramps. Just so many things in Lynchburg that, buying the Desmond Doss house and putting up 3 homeless vets in there.
Yeah, talk about that for a second, because, there were homeless veterans in the Lynchburg area, and you're like, that's not right.
Yeah.
We need to do something. And you wanted to find a place for them. And at first you didn't have the opportunity to buy the Desmond Doss house, but you leased it, right?
Yep. So we were leasing it in 2019 or 2018. And then I had the opportunity with some money that was coming to us from an estate to buy it's a 115-year-old home now. And it needed some renovation and some improvements. So we improved it, and we had 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and 1 kitchen. And we had probably over since then, probably 12 or 13 veterans come in, and either 2 have died in the building, and then the other ones have left or moved on. But Lynchburg really don't have a veterans problem as far as homeless, and we helped do that. Tom Kern is our president, and he meets with the Salvation Army and other nonprofits in Lynchburg every week to make sure that, okay, is there one here? Let's find out how we can help. And we've ran across a bunch of different homeless vets, but they didn't want to stay in a home. They just want to pass through. And we can't help them. They just move on. But if they stay here, well, you can't. We don't want you sleeping on the streets of Lynchburg or underneath viaducts.
The significance, right? I mean, finding and buying a home or leasing a home and putting homeless veterans in there in and of itself, is an amazing thing to do. But the significance of it being in the Desmond Doss house, talk about that.
All right, there you go. You're getting to the point now. The movie came out in Okinawa, where Desmond Doss from Lynchburg grew up, joined the Army as a medic. He wanted to be a non-combatant. And he went to the Army, and next thing he went to Okinawa, and on that particular, he saved over 75 men on that ridge line. And as he was going back and forth, once he would drag him over to the net to lower him down into the other soldiers to help him out, he would say, just one more. Help me, Lord, just one more. And he would crawl back over and find another soldier, drag him over and drop him down. And then when we bought that house, that house is now saving one more veteran who's homeless, and his legacy carries on. Just one more. So over the years, of course, 2006, we had the bypass renamed Desmond Doss Bypass,
right?
And then we had just recently the clinic on Lakeside Drive, the clinic VA. We renamed that one Desmond Doss Clinic, PFC Desmond T. Doss. And then we dedicated that. And we also have a interface thing on Monument Terrace where it shows the actually picture of the Okinawa battle where he lowered the soldiers down. So we've done a lot to make sure that people realize Lynchburg had a real live hero in World War II, Desmond Doss.
And then, of course, the movie about him, which you referenced, which neither of us can remember the name of right now. How accurate was that based on what you know about him?
Yeah, pretty good. I went to the first showing in Lynchburg, and it was pretty accurate. And there was a few other documentaries that came out before the movie, and it actually interviewed some of the soldiers that he saved, and talking about different parts of that ridge line and the tunnels that the Japanese had built, and it was pretty accurate. Yeah. So we're blessed to have the home, and it still needs some maintenance here and there. We just had a meeting this morning that we got to replace one of the floor joists on the basement down there.
Hacksaw Ridge. Thank you, Ashley.
Hacksaw Ridge. Yes. Thank you. Hacksaw Ridge. So we're just blessed in Lynchburg to do so much helping veterans. And God he has blessed me in so many ways. Because every Friday at Marine Veterans, we say a prayer as we close. We do the national anthem, we say a prayer, and we come back the following Friday. And this Friday, by the way, will be 1,234 consecutive Fridays. And when we had 1, 2, 3 the first time, I thought we're never going to have this many Fridays.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about that, because we definitely needed to get there. That started in 2001, right after 9/11.
Yep.
And I talked about it earlier. I know, Mary and Brian with the Morning Line were super involved with that. They did a live broadcast from that, and it was super, emotional, but it turned into so much more, and you never expected that.
No. Nope. And I was still working with Framatome and Arriva, and in November of 2004. So I had to take like a 2-hour lunch break every Friday, and it was okay by my supervisor. I was making it up either morning or evening. So anyway, I drive down there and set out the stuff, and we have about maybe 25, 30 vets early on, but now we have 50 to 75.
Well, but back up for just a second, because you did talk about the first one first.
Yeah, okay. First one was because I was so involved with veterans affairs, veterans issues and stuff. Mary knew that I knew a lot of vets, so she reached out could I help spread the word that we were going to have wasn't really an anti-protest, but it was a rally to show support for the troops.
Support the troops, yeah.
That were going to Afghanistan. We just got 9/11, and we had 3,000 people killed, and we had they attacked us on our territory. So everybody's mad. Everybody said, who could do this? So we had some protesters down at Lynchburg, down in Miami Terrace, a college professor, and some others that just felt like we don't need to go to war. We need to do something else.
We should just lay down and let them come attack us on our soil.
And one of my signs I had made that day was, go to the World Trade Center and protest and see what kind of acceptance you have there. But anyway, it turned out that we had about 75 people. We had a microphone. We had to stand up on the steps behind the Monument Terrace on the curb, because they just want to make sure there was no conflict. And there wasn't. Not at all. We had about 12 of those down there on the curb. We had 75 of us. In fact, I had the dad, Scales, David Scales. He was a World War II D-Day vet. His son was killed in the Pentagon, 9/11, and he was in the Army. So his dad, I held a sign up about the soldier, not the politician who does this and so forth. I had that sign made up, and he read that verbatim, and I still have a great picture of that. And he died later on, but his son died that day, 9/11. And how you read that, I don't know. I had tears in my eyes as he was reading it.
75 people come out, support the troops. You thought it was a cool thing. It was a good day. It was for a good cause, a good reason. And you thought it was a one-time thing.
I did.
And it wasn't.
Until
clearly it isn't.
Until once it was over at 1 o'clock, everybody left except about 12 people. We were just hanging around, shooting a breeze. And we had this one Navy SEAL. And during World War II, he was an underwater demolition team member, which they go into the waters and scope out the coral as the Marines were going to land. And he did that in Iwo Jima and a bunch of other islands. And then in Korea, he did that at Incheon. And then when he went to Vietnam, he became a Navy SEAL and went to Vietnam. So he retired, went to B&W for about 12 years, and then had a farm down in Campbell County. So he and I used to ride bicycles together, and he could run. He's pretty hardcore SEAL. I mean, he was tough. And he was at our first rally, and I call him Jim, but his name was James. He came over and said, "You coming back next week?" I said, "Well, Jim, we really didn't plan on to. There's no one organized anything." And he said, "Damn it, don't you know what next Friday is?" And I thought, gosh, next Friday was Pearl Harbor Day, December the 7th. And I said, hell yeah, I'll be back next Friday. So about 6 of us came back next Friday, maybe 10. And then that kind of kept snowballing. Snowball the movement. And we said, well, hell, let's do it again next Friday. And they had protesters still down there. And we still had to be up on the back of the steps. So by that time, we, after about 2 or 3 months, finally we just, and they didn't have a permit to be down there. And there was a big deal about that back then. They got fined for not having a permit. So we just kind of walked down the curb one Friday and mingled with them. Say, hey, how you doing? Because we knew we see them every Friday. And we didn't throw punches or anything. We just kind of smiled and moved right next to them. And that kind of intimidated them where they felt like, well, there's no use us protesting the war anymore because now these vets are here.
Right.
As I call it, the Marines took the beachhead, and we haven't let it go yet.
And we're talking now, 25 years later?
23 and maybe 7 months now, 8 months. Yeah. So, but there's so many other patriots. You know, I used to have 25 to 30 World War II vets down there in the early stages, and they want to come down with us. You know, they had different cancers, different other ailments, and they came down in their wheelchairs and their walkers. They just want to stand with other young men who served their country and be part of that camaraderie and the brotherhood. And they're all dead now. So, but yet each of their stories, I talked to them, and I got a flag case. On each side of that flag case is names of all those who stood with us. 156 names now, all these different vets and patriots that stood with us, and I am blessed to be part of this movement that started out so innocently. And because of 9/11, but yet now, you know, we still got troops in harm's way throughout the world. And with that recent thing with Iran, you know, that could have went haywire. We could have lost, the jets. We could have lost men in that one, but we didn't. Everything was fine-tuned. It was perfect. And I clapped my hands for those Air Force guys and everybody else who was involved in that and pulled that off.
Of all the different things you've been involved with, and this is probably an impossible question to answer, and it's probably not a fair question to ask, but is there one in particular that you're most proud of?
Well, we started last year doing the Purple Heart Homes, which I got a shirt on, which we help veterans stay in their home and do handicap ramps. So those events really touched my heart because you're putting sweat equity to building ramps to other things where you're actually helping this veteran stay in their home. And seeing their smile, seeing their faces, and as they're watching you build the ramp, knowing that they're going, by the day's end, they're going to be in a wheelchair going down this ramp where they can now be more mobile. And that has been more heartwarming to me in the last year and a half doing that. The Purple Heart Home is we just had a tiny home in Bedford County, first one ever in Virginia, and he needed a home, and we had it organized, and we brought it up here on the trailer. The crane unloaded it, and it's not really hooked up yet, but it's almost. So that's the tiny home. We're renovating, not renovating. We're adding on a suicide. You hear about the 22 suicides of veterans a day. 22. And 2 years ago, a veteran in Bedford County shot his ex-wife or wife, shot his boyfriend, her boyfriend, and then shot himself. Three dead. But they had two twin sons, a girl and son, who were still alive. I mean, they were orphans now. So the sister took it, and they adopted him, I guess. But they live over in there, about 2 hours away. So we heard about this in December. We had a board meeting, luncheon, Christmas meeting, and we raised $2,000 in gift cards that next day for the family during Christmas. And then we started a fundraiser, and now we got $57,000 to build on another add-on to their existing home.
Wow.
Because they already had, I think, 2 or 3 kids. Now they got 5. And they had a mother-in-law, so the home is already small. So now it's going to start construction probably this week on that. So that was just another heartwarming story that is part of our legacy as far as veterans helping veterans. And we didn't really reach out to this family, but we just heard about it and we just jumped in feet first. And how can we help?
Well, how can people help you? I mean, I know you're a member of a number of different organizations, and on the video part of this, Kira can get an email address or a phone number up or whatever. But
well, you use my cell number, phone number. But if you want to be a volunteer, anyway, help build ramps, be part of the group that we got. We always need volunteers. You don't have to be a carpenter or skills or anything. You just want to help. And the other thing is we're just starting DAV, Disabled American Veterans. We just last week, we got the snowball moving to get a van from them, brand new van, to come to Lynchburg and be parked over at the clinic. But all we need to do is have volunteers to help transport them to their VA appointments for folks who don't have a driving license or can't drive or they're too disabled. So I volunteered, and right now we got about 4 or 5 other volunteers. But you got to fill out the volunteer paperwork, and then you got to take a physical. You got to do a fingerprint. So all this has got to go on because you got to make sure that you can drive and be. Anyway, if you want to help drive, please contact me because we need about 10 or 12 volunteers to help do that. And it's going to be about once or twice a month where you might have to drive from here to Salem, Virginia and back.
So do you have a website or something, or is it just call your cell phone? You want to give it out?
Yeah. It's 434-238-4120. 434-238-4120.
It's right there across the bottom of the screen, right, Kira? Kira's got it covered.
And we got a Facebook page, of course, Purple Heart Homes Facebook page, Lynchburg Area Veterans Facebook page, Miami Terrace Facebook page. And we got a lot of different veterans who pitch in and do things. And that's what we just had a meeting this morning, Lynchburg Area Veterans Council. And we have a board meeting at 9 and a public meeting at 10 at the American Legion Post 16. And we get a lot of things done. We figure out what's coming up, what we can be involved in, what's going on. And then next thing you know, there's all kind of other nonprofits out there that also we team up with to help and do their part too, like the awareness walkness for suicides. Anyway, back to that suicide thing, we didn't really 22 a day, but having that particular family be impacted by that suicide really touched each of us. Whew.
You're good. You're good. I know it's not easy.
It touched each of us. And we get something done too.
So if folks want to help, call you directly. And before, and just want to thank you again for your time here, but I know you brought something with you that you wanted to talk about as well.
Yes, I did. The Lynchburg Police Department, of course, I got over the years with the color guard, Ryan Zunema, the chief of police, and Greg Wormser, the chief fire department. They came on board and running with their color guard, the Virginia 10-mile color guard, because we had so many veterans running with us when we first started and after 9/11, 2001. I started that just mainly because to bring more awareness to where now we're going to send troops to harm's way. At that time, we had no one killed. Now we got over 7,000 killed in war in Afghanistan and Iraq and other little Syria and so place. Anyway, I started color guard. So every year, September rolled around, we got 10 to 20, sometimes 25 veterans and patriots carrying flags the whole 10 miles. Now I'm so daggum old, I can't do it no more. So I got Greg.
Coming up that road on Langhorne right at the end, that could be easy.
You got that big ass hill up there. So Langhorne. So anyway, Greg and I asked Greg and Ryan Zunema if they could take over the color guard and start getting more of the volunteers from the fire department and the first responders, the police, and so forth. And they have got more involved now in doing that. So both of them are good friends of mine. And Ryan, this year they had a brand new badge struck with the Monument Terrace icon being on the front of the badge, which they did not have before. So they issued everybody a brand new badge. So about 3 weeks ago, Ryan said, I got something for you. He came down and had a little short ceremony, brought down about 6 or 10 veterans that's in the police force, and presented this beautiful badge. It says Lynchburg Veterans on it. Same badge they wear, but on the top it says Lynchburg Veterans. And then gave me it with that. Do
you want to hold it up?
Well, if I can reach over to it.
Yeah, go ahead, move that.
Yeah. So the badge is in a nice case, and of course I got to read it with my reading glasses. So. All right, which pocket I put my reading glasses in? Gosh, I don't know. Anyway.
Here, you want me to give it a try?
Yeah, give it a try.
I'll give it a try. It says Monument Terrace Troop Rally. In recognition of over 23 years of unwavering dedication to honoring our nation's veterans and supporting our troops at Monument Terrace, Lynchburg, Virginia, since November 30th, 2001. Your partners, the Lynchburg Police Department, May 23rd, 2005.
Yep. And
That's
I had
awesome.
a business card made up with the badge on the front. And on the back, I had the text on the back. And I had our two challenge coin, front and back, which we present to everybody who comes to Monument Terrace on Friday. We give you the challenge coin to, it says, support our troops and so forth. So you're part of the family. I've given over 5,000 challenge coins in the last probably over 10 years now. And so it's been a great event down there. It's heartwarming down there. Every Friday, the Lord says, there's always something new every Friday. It's not boring. I can't wait to get up every Friday morning and go down there and see what's going to happen, who's going to show up, a new veteran, a new, like I say, when the war started, I had so many mothers and fathers that came down there when their son was off to war, and they just want to be standing with us because they knew what we were standing for. We were supporting them, and they just felt glad that someone was doing that, and we were. And now I've had
even the people just driving by honking.
Oh yeah,
the troops.
You want to hear that story? we got a sign that says "Honk if you support the troops." and I had that sign made out there. And as you know, everybody honks, and
Yeah.
I wish I had $1 for every honk I heard. But the bottom line is, short story is, someone complained about that one time about the first year,
Oh boy.
and there is a law on Virginia books that says you cannot honk your horn unless it's an emergency. There's a quote just like that, and they got a number to it. And the chief of police got a letter, and the city manager got a letter from a lawyer in town. Can you imagine one of our nice lawyers? Anyway, they sent a letter saying, could you cease and desist honking, encourage the people to honk the horns? And his office was up in the Allied Arts Building, about, 12 stories up. Mm-hmm. Windows closed. You can't hear nothing up there. So chief of police came down, Chuck Bennett, and he gave me the copy of that letter saying, you know what to do with this. And then, of course, I got a letter from the city manager saying, could you stop? So what I did, I went out there and made another sign that says, if you do honk your horn, you are breaking the law, and this is your problem. But I informed all the media around town, radio, TV, and so forth, newspaper, and about this lawyer, and I said, and they wanted to interview him. And next thing you know, he couldn't have a good answer why he wanted to stop. Stop. So anyway, I ignored it. It went away like everything else. And that's just part of the history of Marine Veterans. So now you know you just can't honk your horn unless it's an emergency.
Or unless you're willing to roll the dice.
Roll the dice.
Every Friday, Monument Terrace. You guys are still there and going strong. It's awesome. Steve, I really appreciate the time. This has been incredible.
Well, I know it's over the 1 hour limit, so I know you're going to have to edit it down.
Well, the great thing is people can watch the video, and
Yeah.
it'll all be there, and amazing stories. And thank you for all you do.
Sorry I got emotional toward the end, but
No, it's understandable. It's absolutely understandable. And again, thank you for all you've done.
these stories, it touches your heart. And next thing you know, you just got to, do what God asked you to do. It's go out and help.
Steve Bozeman.
All right, buddy.
Thank you.
If you can help folks, give me a call. Rich, thank you, buddy.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.